Hi, this is Paul, and today I'm going to show you how to create a lens flare glint effect on the edge of your title or logo in Avid Media Composer. So here we are with a finished effect. It's a very popular effect these days, especially for trailers or logos. I know I've seen this effect on a Disney logo before, and of course J.J. Abrams likes using the lens flares. So it's a very common effect. It's very popular these days, and I'm going to show you how to do it in just 3 tracks. How about that? Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to start with a blank project, and what I'm going to do is start with my text. Now I'm going to use BCC Extruded Text to create my effect, but you don't have to use 3D text to do this. You can do it on an Avid title. You can do it on a 2D image. It does look better if it is a little 3D, maybe embossed or something, but don't think it has to be a 3D effect. Okay, let's get started by creating some text. Let's call it just Disclose. Maybe it didn't take as much time to think of a quippy thing this time, but that's okay, you'll get the idea. So this is the default text, not a lot going on. So let's stylize the text to make it look like it should be glowing. First thing, you can just add a preset. In the extrusion menu, select the metal chrome preset to start. Good starting point. Let's change the bevel style to convex and change the side style to straight and bring down the bevel a little bit, maybe to 0.3, and decrease the extrusion depth just a bit to 1.5. Okay, and that's all you have to do there. Next, we're going to change the material count from 1 to 2. In the front material, gray is kind of blah, so let's change the diffuse color to something a little more blue, and turning down the texture strength will help the diffuse color show up better. Then in the side material, add another preset. We're going to use metal chrome again. Okay, so this gives us the same material settings we had earlier, but now it's applied stronger to the side. I'm actually going to come down to the reflectivity and make it even more reflective all the way. And that gives us nice highlights on the side of our object, which is where we want the lens flare to be. To make this look more 3D, let's rotate it in the transformations group. So just orientation X it back a bit so it catches more light. That looks good. Okay, so before we add more effects to this text, we have to go into General Controls and select Multifilter Start. I'm also going to turn off the safe levels because, you know, this is just going to be shown on a computer. I don't have to worry about broadcast safe here. Now, lens flare. It's in the BCC Lights category. Lens flare 3D is what I want. So hold Alt and click and drag lens flare onto your 3D text. This will stack the filters so that the alpha channel is preserved. Okay, now there's a lot going on here by default. The easiest way to set this up is just to load the preset called Disable All Groups. Okay, now, so you're not flying totally blind, twirl down here and select Flare On. So at least we can see something happening here. So this is just the flare, kind of nice, kind of cute in its way. Again, we have to go into the title mat and select Multifilter End. Next, go into the obscuration map and select Filter Layer. So what does that do? Well, that lets the lens flare get obscured or blocked by your image. Although in this case, it's actually pulling the colors from my image, which is a very useful trick when the lens flare is supposed to be following the object on the edge. Anyway, so obscuration map, turn it on. You might want to increase the source radius a bit to 5 or so. To help smooth out the colors. Next, go down to the light source and change built-in to edge map. Okay, nothing happens, so twirl down edge and select your map layer. We want to use the filter layer. And now we've got all these nice lens flare glints on the edge of our object. And if you change the position, you can actually see it follow those edges. So this is pretty much the backbone of the whole effect right here. In fact, I'm going to animate the position parameter so we can see how it'll look in motion without worrying about it. Not a full rotation, maybe just half a rotation should be fine. As I scrub through, I can tell if the glints are doing what I want them to do. Looks like they are pretty much behaving as expected. If you have too many or too few glints or lens flares, you can change the threshold and minimum pixel length of your edge. So decreasing either of these will give you more flares. Increasing either one will give you less. Usually 10 or less flares looks good. Okay, so now that we have the geometry set up, let's actually customize the look of the flare to make it look more sci-fi, for lack of a better word. So let's go back to the flare group. I want to turn off that draw ring. That's all I have to do there. Let's turn on the rays again. So rays, you can do a lot of stuff. I'm going to change the color. Blue is going to be my color scheme here. Obviously, you can do a different one. I will increase the intensity of the rays to about 200. Drop the scale down to 0.2 and bring the count down to 100 or less. The look of the rays changes drastically when you change the count. You can get a lot of really cool looks that way too. So anything less than 100, and the numbers really matter. That looks good. And that's all I have to do with rays. Next, I'm going to turn on the fog. This adds a lot of glow to your scene, so use it carefully. I'm going to turn the intensity way down, about 10 for now. Next, I'm going to turn on polygons. Kind of a fun little element here. I'm going to drop the count down here as well. Something below 10 is good. Hopefully 8 will be good. And turning on hollows. These are another fun little element, but you don't want to see them too obviously. So bring the intensity down here, maybe to about 2. Just enough. And I'm going to change the color of the hollows to blue as well. Lastly, turn on the stripe. The stripe is one of my favorite elements in the lens flare. Kind of gives it that ultimate sci-fi look. Going to drop the softness down and increase the intensity. So that definitely stands out. You might not want that much of it. You can also turn down the length if it's too much. But I think that looks about right. You know, this is industrial, high-tech sci-fi. We need a stripe on our lens flare. And that's exactly how people ask for these things too. Okay, so now we have our lens flares following the edges, and they are increasing their brightness with the brightness on the object, which is good, but they're always on the object. So to make them come on and go off like I did in the pre-render, we're just going to animate the global scale. So let's start at 0. Keyframe there. Go to where the position stops or just before it stops, and another 0 keyframe there. And then anywhere in between, we'll create a keyframe at our maximum scale, which should be about 0.8 or 1, depending on how big your text is, you know, or how many flares you have. Some value like that should be right. And I decided 0.5 actually looks better for this graphic. And there it is. So that is how I created the lens flare edge effect in the previous title. Now, all the other stuff that was going on in the scene, the stars in the background and the lens flare kind of wipe on, wipe off effect, were 2 different tracks. So I'm going to do those very quickly here. The stars were made from Particle Emitter 3D, again applied to nothing, just used as a filter. And I'm just going to load a preset for those. And I made one special for this tutorial, and you can download it too. And it's called Stars Background. And on top, another lens flare effect is used for wipe on, wipe off. And again, just load the preset that I made, which I called Flare On and Off. Depending on your timing, you might want to stretch to fit, like I will in this case. And there is the missing part. So to get the text to appear magically when the lens flare is over it, and that I did using just a simple quick transition here, maybe a duration of 12 frames. And likewise for the end. So without playing this back real time, you don't get the full illusion that it's coming on and going off at the right time. But that's pretty much all there was to it. Just finding where the lens flare is about peaked there, maybe switching it like so, and creating a short transition at that point. Okay, now there were a couple other things I added on top of this middle piece. They were just kind of light touches. For example, I added a light sweep effect, just alt dragging more filters as you want them there. And again, once you add more filters, you have to change the order in your title mat. So if I have light sweep here, that means that's the last filter, which is pushing lens flare now into the middle of the stack. So here I can go into the light sweep, increase the cone width and the intensity, and just animate the light center across it. And if that wasn't enough, I also added a film glow on top of that. So alt dragging again, changing the order one last time. So film glow is the end effect, and light sweep is now a middle effect. I just increased the threshold for the film glow to back it off a bit, and selected the matte layer as the filter layer, which also chokes the glow down. And there you have it. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. A lot going on here, a lot for you to try yourself. And don't forget to download the project files and presets that I made specially for this project. You can find all that at borisfx.com.